Hi everyone, my name is Francis Okoye. In today's lab, we're going to be setting up Active Directory infrastructure in the cloud. To do that, we're going to go back to Azure Portal and create a resource group. After creating a resource group, we're going to create a virtual network. After creating a virtual network, we're going to create two virtual machines. And one of those virtual machines is going to be our domain controller, and the other one is just going to be the other one is going to be just a computer that is running Windows 10, and we're going to name it Client 1. After that, we're going to make sure that the the two computers are linked to one virtual network. Okay, so before we continue, I'm going to be explaining some technical terms that I've just mentioned. One is virtual network, and the second one is Active Directory, and the third one is domain controller. What is virtual network? Virtual network is like a private secure network that exists in the cloud, such as Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Services. Just think of it as just a neighborhood where all our devices like VM and application lives. Okay, virtual network helps to connect them in one place and allow them to talk to each other securely. I don't know whether that makes sense. Okay, Active Directory is like a digital address book for the network. It helps to store important informations like users and computers in a central locations, right? And also helps to manage permissions such as who can access those files and applications. And the last one is domain controller. A domain controller is a computer inside the network that helps to manage and control access to files, printers, and application. Also think of it like a security guard in the network that helps to make sure that only authorized persons and devices can access important stuff in the network. I don't know whether that makes sense, and I would like to share my screen right now to further explain what we will be doing in this lab. I will see you inside. Okay, as you can see, I'm now sharing my screen, and this is the diagram that will explain what we'll be doing today, right? Like I said during the intro, we're going to be creating two virtual machines. One will be our domain controller, and the other one will be client one. And our domain controller also have the network interface card and IP address, and client one also have network interface card and IP address. So in real life, whenever you're trying to look up something before this configuration, if you try to look up something in client one, it's going to be getting its answers from Azure DNS server. Okay, but for the purpose of this lab, we want client one to be getting answers whenever we try to look up something in client one, to be getting answers to our domain control. So we're going to link the DNS IP address of client one to our domain control. So whenever you try to like access any information from this or look up something, for example, google.com, instead of going to Azure DNS server, we're going to point the DNS IP address to this so that our domain control will be feeding or giving response to our client one. And again, remember in real life, client one can be represent multiples of computers that is being joined to a domain controller. And our domain controllers in real life also doubles as DNS server, right? So instead of joining or getting feeds or getting answers or results from Azure DNS server, is going to be getting answers from our domain controller. So I think that is basically what we'll be doing. So we'll be joining this computer to this. For the purpose of this lab, we're just using this client one, instead of multiple computers, to explain the ideology or what happened in the back end, in the configuration back end. Okay, so I think I've just threw more light on this, and if there's any other thing that be coming up in the course of the lab, I will try as much as possible to narrow it down so that we can at least catch up. Okay, just don't worry, let's get to the lab. Okay, we're going to continue the lab right now, and as you can see, I've opened another checklist for this lab. In this lab, like I said before, we're going to be preparing Active Directory infrastructure in the cloud. Okay, and like I always do, I'll put the link to this checklist in the description of this video so that you can actually get it and then try to guide you whenever you're trying to do the lab. Okay, so to run these labs, I would also want you to get used to these variables, because that is what I'm going to be using to drive my point, to be able to explain it better for you to understand, okay, without further ado, let's get to the lab. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is to set up domain controller in Azure. To do that, we're going to create a resource group and name it Active Directory Lab. And after that, we're going to create a virtual network and subnet and name it Active Directory VNet. And after that, we're going to create a virtual machine that will run on Windows Server 22 and name it DC1 using this username. And also after that, we're going to set up client 2 in Azure. And the reason why I didn't put any instruction in this, because we've created a resource group virtual machine in our last class on OS ticketing. And if you've not watched that video, please go back and to my channel and then watch it to be able to get acquainted with what we're going to do right now. I'm going to create this thing, and other of the steps that we're going to be taking are also explained down here. So to start the lab, I'm going to, first of all, we're going to create a resource group and name it Active Directory Lab. So I'm going to copy this name just for clarity purpose, okay? And so to create a resource group in Azure, this is an Azure portal. Go ahead and log into yours if you already have a subscriptions, like I already treated this in the last video. Okay, so go to your address bar and then search for resource group. Just type resource group, okay? And then you see it appear. Just click on it. So when it opens, just click on create. Then this is the subscription, and then this is the name of us. Just type in the name of this the resource group that we're going to be creating, Active Directory Lab, okay? And then we're going to put it in East US too, okay? Just be taking note of what I'm doing, and then we can just say review and create. And then we can say create. Okay, resource group created. So to check this resource group, we'll just go back and click on resource group, just to be sure, okay? Maybe it's still creating, just refresh it. It's supposed to be here. Okay, now it appears. So you can now see the resource group is already being created. So the next one we're going to do is to create a virtual network and subnet and name it Active Directory VNet. Just so we copy this and see. Then we go back to address bar and type and look for virtual network. See, it appears. Just click on it. Just click on create virtual network. Okay, you still earn a subscription one, and then make sure the resource group is created. Like I said, a resource group is basically an identity folder that is used to store, that will be used to store our virtual machine, our VNet, and other resources in Azure. Okay, any resources that you're creating in Azure must be stored inside the resource group. I think that I've explained that in our previous video. So make sure you select under resource group, you're selecting the resource group we just created now, which is Active Directory Lab. Okay, because as a matter of fact, we actually have 1 or 2 or 3 resource group, running in Azure. Okay, you create a resource group. For example, you're trying to work on create a code. Just name it according to whatever you're doing. Okay, so for this lab, we're using Active Directory Lab. Okay, for this lab. Okay, like I said, it's an identity folder. After that, we're just going to move to virtual network name. Our name should be, type it in, Active Directory VNet virtual network, okay? And then make sure it is created in the same location. And we're going to just say review and create. And then create. Submitting deployment in progress. Just give it some minute and it's going to just create it, okay? Deployment succeeded. It's still deploying in progress, okay? Deployment in progress. Just give it some minute and we're just going to move to the next one, okay? Okay, your deployment is complete, okay? Just refresh this. Good, and then we can now look for a virtual network. Click on it to see if it's created actually. Okay, yeah, our VNet has been created. Okay, then the next thing, we're going to create a virtual machine that will be running on Windows 10. That will be running on Windows Server 22, and we're going to name it DC1. Okay, just I'm going to copy this. Just try to be fast. So to create this virtual machine, just type virtual machine and click on it. Virtual machine. Okay. So we just say create and then select the first one. Allow it to load. And then it's on a subscription. And then we're going to click here and select our resource group. That is Active Directory Lab. Okay. Then we continue. Our virtual machine name should be DC1, right? Then we're going to make sure that it is deployed inside EastUS2, okay? Because like I said in the previous video, this region means where you want this virtual machine to be deployed. So for this lab, anything we're going to be creating, we're going to be deploying it inside this, EastUS2. Okay, after that, scroll down, and then I'm going to select zone 2. Check out this and select zone 2. Okay, because that is where my available disk size is. Okay, so after that, I'm going to skip network type, and then under image, I'm going to select Windows Server 22. I'm going to select this one. Okay, it's going to load, and under size, make sure that you have something that has to do with 2 vCPUs. Okay, so we should, under username, we're going to use lab user. Okay, so remember, this username is the username and the login details that you're going to use to log into this virtual machine, this computer, later in the lab. Okay, just make sure you didn't mess this up. What you see, that's why I'm putting it here so that you can actually be copying it the way I'm doing. V. Okay, so the username is lab user and the password is cyberlab12345. Okay, so go up and you can just say next to disk. We're not doing any setting here, and say next to networking. This is where we actually create our network interface card. Just make sure that this VNet network is the virtual network that we created is being selected here, right? See, we created a virtual network before we actually started creating this virtual machine. Just make sure that this virtual network is selected. This virtual network we created is selected here, okay? After that, we can just leave all these settings and just say review and create. So it's going to run it, and then we'll give it some time, and then we're just going to create. Okay, so we're going to allow it to deploy, and we're going to create, after deployment, we're going to start creating the second virtual machine, which is going to be running on Windows 10, okay? And we're going to name it client 1, okay? So I'm going to allow it to deploy, and then we're going to get started. Deployment in progress. So I would have loved to actually start creating the next virtual machine, but I would want to wait, just wait, so that this one finish creating, so that we don't mess things up, okay? Because actually this virtual machine, this computer usually takes some time before it actually finishes deploying, okay? Your deployment is complete, okay? So we just refresh this, and then we can just search virtual machine to make sure that it's created, okay? Let's go here and type virtual machine to make sure that it's created. Okay, so we can now see our Windows Server, which is our domain controller that has already been created, and it's running right now. It's in EastUS2. So we're going to create another virtual machine. Click create. And this one that we're going to be creating now is one that we're running on Windows 10. Okay. So after loading, just select the Active Directory Lab. That's the resource group that we created. And the name of the virtual machine that we're going to be using right now, creating right now, is client 1. Then make sure it is selected, East2 is selected. That is where we are deploying all our resource. And available option zone, leave it the way it is. And then we go to zone, and I'm going to check zone 2. Feel free to choose whatever works for you, because this is exactly where I tried to explain this in the previous video, right? This is where the available size that I'm using is. Okay, so under image, we're going to select Microsoft Windows 10 Pro. Okay, so that's it. After that, make sure that your size is something that has to do with 2 VC pools or higher. It mustn't be this or higher. This has to do with how much you're paying actually. This is where they used to calculate how much, Azure used to calculate how much you're going to be paying for the resource that you're creating. Okay, so this again is the username and password that we're going to use to log in. Go ahead and copy the way I'm doing it, just as easy as I'm doing it. Control C, then go paste it. Control V, then copy this one too. Server link, server lab 123. Control C, go ahead and paste it. Control V, paste it. Control V. Okay, after that, scroll down and then make sure you check this licensing thing for the eligibility. Okay, and after that, you say next. Next to Dix, we're not doing anything right now on Dix. Next to networking, make sure at this point that these are Active Directory VNet, the virtual network that we created is being selected. Just click on it and select it. And after that, after selecting, we just say create, review and create. Okay, so validation pass, we just say create. Okay, so now deployment in progress. We're just going to give it a minute, and while we're waiting for it to deploy, I'm going to scroll up right now. I'm just going to bring this one out a bit. Okay, just so I can see this one. Okay, so just scroll up a bit. So the next thing we have is on the next step, which is to set domain controllers network network interface card private IP address to be static. Okay, I'm just going to use a diagram to explain this. Why this is deploying, I want to just explain something to you. Okay, so what we're doing at this point is that we're trying to set the private IP address for our domain controller to be static. Why are we doing that? Because we're actually connecting this computer to it, right? We wouldn't want a situation whereby when this computer is turned off and turned up again, the IP address will change. Because if it is actually on dynamic, for example, if it's on dynamic, if you turn this computer on and turn it off, the IP address is going to change. The private IP address is going to change. We don't want that, because when it changes, you try to look up something in this client one, like I explained before, you wouldn't find where to, get the answers from, because of the IP address have changed, right? So what you need to do is, what we're not going to do right now is to just set the DNS private IP address of our domain controller to be static. That is what we're doing. Just trying to configure the network interface card for our domain controller and set the IP address to be static. That is exactly what we're going to be doing. So that whenever this computer or so many other computers that will be connecting to it, maybe probably in real life, is trying to look up something, is going to still remain the IP address, which also serve as our DNS server, will remain the same. Okay, so we don't want it to change when this computer is turned off. So that's what we're going to be doing. So let's go back and check our deployment. Okay, so deployment is complete. So we can just type virtual machine and click on it to check if it has been created. Okay, so we now have client 1 and DC1, and they are both running right now. And the both of them are linked to one virtual network, as I explained before. I will just hope you're just following me, okay? And so we're going to configure the network interface card of our domain controller, which is DC1, to be static. To do that, you just have to click on this, click on DC1 and open it. Click on networking, network settings. Okay, so this thing here is the network interface card for our domain controller, the DC1. So we're just going to click on it. After loading, just take a look at here. You see the private IP address for our domain controller is still on dynamic, so we're going to change it to be static, okay? To be static, so that whenever you turn or restart this computer, it will not change the private IP address. To do that, click on config, IP config, click on static. Under private IP address setting, allocation, we just click on static, okay? And then you click on save. Okay, so it has been saved. So to make sure that it's actually saved, just click on this and go back to it. Click on config, IP config. Okay, so it's on static, so we are good to go. So close this and return back to virtual machine, okay? So the next we've configured the domain controller network interface card IP address to be static, okay? After that, we're going to go to step 3, and the step 3 says set client 1's DNS settings to DC1's private IP address. So I'm going to use a diagram again to explain what we're going to do. Actually, what we're going to do is to configure client 1 computer's DNS server to point to our DC1's private IP address. We're going to copy the DC1's private IP address, and use it to configure client 1. I'm going to open the diagram again to show you. Okay, so what we're doing here is that we're going to set we're going to configure the network interface card for our client 1 computer, this computer right here, right? We're going to configure the network interface card using the DNS private IP address of our domain controller. We're going to configure this using this private IP address. So while we're doing it, just like I explained before in this lab, we are just trying to link, trying to configure the DNS server for this, so that whenever you're looking up something, whenever you're trying to look up something in this computer right here, it's going to be pointing to the DNS private IP address of our domain controller. I don't know whether all this English is going to confuse you. Just copy the private IP address from this domain controller and use it to configure the DNS setting for this client 1. So that's exactly what we're going to do right now, okay? Okay, so to do that, we're going to open a domain controller VM and copy the private IP address, okay? So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to open our DC1, click on DC1. To copy the private IP address, I will want to expand this. Just slowly copy it. Control-C, okay? And then I'm going to minimize it back. And then I'm going to open, go back. I'll open client 1, okay? Click on it. Okay, so click on networking, network settings. So what we're doing, like I explained, we're trying to configure the network interface card for client 1, okay, to point to the private IP address of our domain controller. So click on this. We just clicked on the network interface card. Then we come back here, we click on DNS server. And then we click on custom. Then we're going to paste that IP address that we copied, okay? Control-P. This is the IP address for private IP address for our domain controller. And then after we paste it, we just say save. So allow it to just load, and then we're going to come back to it. So we've done this. It's updating right now. Okay. So we've done this. So the next thing we're going to move to, while this thing is updating, next thing we're going to move to is 4. So the next step, okay, so it has finished saving. So to check if this thing actually have saved, just click here and then click on DNS setting again, and then we come back and check. It's on custom right now, and then it's pointing to our DC1. Okay, so I will just go back to my virtual machine. Okay. So the next thing is it on step 4, it says log into DC1 virtual machine and disable the Windows firewalls. Okay, this is just for testing purposes. Actually, if we're trying to test or look up something, or maybe try to configure something in our client one, because now we have linked it, right? So if we want to do something, we don't want any interference. Okay, we don't want any interference in our domain controller, right? We don't want it to stop us from trying to connect to it, because right now in real life, I said other computers are prone to connect to DC1 because our DC1 also doubles as the DNS server, right? So in real life, when computers trying to communicate to DC1, we don't want any firewalls or any security to try to interrupt it. So that is what we're doing here. So we're going to log into our DC1 using the DC1 private IP address and try to disable it by running this command. Okay, I'm just copying it. Okay, let's see. So we're going to log into DC1. To log into DC1, I'm going to, sorry, just 1 second. I'm going to maximize this and copy the public IP address for DC1. Guys, at this point, please make sure you're copying the right thing. Do not copy the wrong one. Just copy this. This is DC1. See, we're going to just log into it. So go to, then I'm going to minimize this again. Go to your start bar and type remote desktop connection, then click on it. And then the IP address, we're going to paste it. The IP address, we'll just copy it and then say connect. Remember the username and password. The username is lab user, right? And password is cyberlink, capital C. Cyberlab 1 2 3 4 5. That's it. I think that's the password, right? Okay, so just say connect. Check this, and then we are in our DC1 virtual machine, our DC1 computer. So to make sure that you are in the right place, if you mistakenly log into the wrong virtual machine, just make sure if this Windows server, the log box is going to pop up pretty soon, okay? When it finishes loading, okay? Just let's give it some seconds and then we're going to be good to go, okay? So this is our domain controller, and start server manager is going to pop up just to show or to just for you to be sure that you are in the right place, okay? Just close this, and then if you're still not confused, just right click on your start menu and then click system. When it opens, then scroll down and then you see under edition, you see that you're running Windows Server 22. That shows you that you're in the right place, okay? So right click this. So let's go back to the checklist and see what we're asked to do. So we're asked to run this command inside our domain control, open our domain control and run this command to disable the firewalls, okay? So let's open it again. And then right click on the start menu and click run. And then we're going to paste this, or you can type it out and say okay. Okay, so click on Window Defense Firewall and turn this off. Click on private profile, turn this off. Click on public profile, turn this off, and then say apply and okay. So we've done this, and then we minimize this and go back to the checklist. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do in our checklist is to 5 says from Azure Portal restart client 1. Okay, this is Azure Portal. We're going to maximize this right now. To restart client 1, click on this checkbox right here, and then click on restart all. Okay, and then say yes. So just give it a minute and it's going to restart. Why is restarting? I'm going to minimize this and then go back to the next thing I have. The next thing on the 6th is say log into client 1 and attempt to ping the DC1 private IP address. So I'm going to open DC1 and copy the first I'm going to log into client 1. We already restart, our client 1 is restarting right now. So I'm going to copy the DC1 private IP address and log into this client 1 computer and then try to ping, try to communicate our domain controller to see if it succeeds. And the next step, it says ensure the ping succeeds. Okay, just to make sure that the connection that we already made is working. Okay, so we're going to allow this. After restarting this, I'm going to just say refresh to check the status where it is at the time. Okay. Okay, so it means that it's running right now. If it's still restarting, it will just say, give you the update on that status, okay? But right now it's already finished restarting it and then it's now running. So now go back to the checklist and it says attempt to ping DC1. Okay, we're going to copy. First of all, we're going to log into client 1 using the public IP address. Let's do that. Copy the public IP address of client 1. Make sure you're copying the right thing, okay? Ctrl C. And then we're going to minimize this and then go back. Remember, this DC1 is still open, right? And the domain control is still open. So I'm going to open another one. Type in remote desktop and then open it. Then we'll paste the IP address, public IP address. We'll copy it and say connect. And then our username is lab user. And the password is capital letters CyberLab. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then we say okay. Check this, and then we're in. Okay, now this is our client 1 computer that is running Windows 10. Okay, that we created. Okay, now it's loading. Okay, so we go back. I'm going to minimize it and go back and copy the private IP address of our domain controller and then come back here. Okay, nice. I'll open a DC1. Sorry. I'll expand this. So DC1, we're in DC1 right now. I'll copy the public IP address. Look at the public IP address here. I'm going to copy it. Ctrl C. Then I'm going to minimize this. And then open the computer again. 1 second. Still loading. Just give it time. Close this. Okay, so when this finishes, just check this, and say accept. Okay, yes. Refresh the desktop, refresh it. So, okay, so we're going to attempt to ping DC1's private IP address. Try to communicate, try to ping the DC1 public IP address inside our client 1 computer that is running Windows 10. Okay, to do that, we're going to go to start, click start, and type PowerShell. Okay, and open it. I'm going to, this is so small, I'm going to increase it. Properties, 24. Okay, just so you see what I'm doing. Okay, so remember I've copied the private IP address of our domain controller. Just what you do here, just type ping, shift, and then you paste it. Okay, that's it, enter. At this point, if this reading is going on, it means that the communication has went through, it has succeeded. But if you see something like timeout, 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 it means that you've done something wrong. At this point, you need to go back and start the lab again, or maybe try to retake your step to know where you've gone wrong in the settings. Okay, so but for right now, this communication, this ping has succeeded, and then we'll minimize it and go back to our lab again. Okay. So we're just going to bring up our lab checklist, and then I'll bring this one up too. Okay, so the last one is said from client one, which is where we're just coming from. Open PowerShell and run IP config. So I'm going to copy this. Okay. Just see. Then after running it, the output of this DNS setting should show our domain controller's private IP address. When we run this in our client one, it's going to show the private IP address of our domain controller. To do that, I'm going to open client one. So minimize this. To make sure that I am in the right computer, like I taught you before, just right click here and say system. You should see the status loaded. Okay, now Windows 10 Pro. This is edition Windows 10 Pro. We are in the right place. So open PowerShell again. And then we're going to paste IP config, or just type it out. I'm just doing it so that you can follow me the way I'm going. Just understand how easy I'm trying to get this thing done. Okay, just type IP config and then click run. So now we're going to scroll up to check the DNS setting for this computer. Okay, so this is the DNS setting. This is the DNS setting, right? So it's showing our DC1 private IP address. So which means this lab, we've concluded it and it's now working. Just one last tip before we go. If I go back to DC1 and try to run IP config, the DNS server is going to be pointing to Azure Virtual Network. Okay, it's okay for the our domain controller to point to Azure Virtual Network server, DNS server, to get answers from it. But what we're trying to do is just to make sure that our domain controller, which will be the mother distributor of what we're doing, should connect to our computer, should be connected to or linked to our computer, which is client one, that is only Windows 10. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to go back to I'm going to minimize this client one, and then I'll open DC1, our domain controller. If we open PowerShell here, click start and open PowerShell. Click start, open PowerShell. Okay. Oh, let me minimize. Let me increase the font so that we can see what I'm doing. Okay. Okay. So if we go back to, if we scroll up, if we scroll up, the DNS setting, the DNS server should be pointing to Azure Virtual DNS setting. Okay, should be pointing to Azure Virtual Network. Okay, okay. So it's okay for our DC1 domain controller to point to Azure Virtual Network for answers, but what we want to achieve in this lab, the setup that we've just done, is to make sure that our client one, which is this computer, is pointing to the private IP address of our domain controller. With this, we've come to the end of this lab.